First game of our series against the Northwest Arkansas Naturals, and Randy Henry joins us on the pregame show. Randy, you've now made 5 games since coming back off the disabled list. Are you feeling a little bit more like yourself where you were at the beginning of the season?
Yeah, definitely. I would say they're about the third outing, the third, fourth, and fifth outing. I've started feeling a lot more like myself and been able to command the ball in the zone a little bit. My arm's starting to feel better and get into the hang of everything. So I'd say I'm pretty close to where I was before.
You went a while without pitching against live hitting. You know, you didn't have your live BP that you were going to as part of your timetable to come back. Did that prove difficult when you got back out there on the mound, just basically after throwing a couple of bullpens and having not thrown in a game environment for 5 weeks?
I would say definitely the first 2 outings it was a little different to see somebody in the batter's box and to think about where I was going to throw the ball compared to just worrying about my arm in that sense. But my last 2 bullpens I threw, I had Brett Nicholas and a couple of other guys stand in there during my bullpen. So it was I'd seen a little bit of it, but with the adrenaline and the fans and things going and then actually having to worry about them hitting the ball and stuff, it definitely was a little different.
How strange is that for you when you're out there on the mound and you don't feel maybe like yourself that you had earlier in the season? You were doing so well out there on the mound. Is it a little bit of a strange feeling when you know that you're not at your best and that it's a process?
Yeah, I would say that when you're feeling good and you don't have to worry about your arm and everything's flowing, you don't necessarily think about things. Your body just kind of takes over and you do what you know you're supposed to do. And when you're worried about your arm or you know that your pitches aren't quite as crisp or you're not throwing the ball where you want to, I think it definitely takes a toll on you just a little bit to think about, take a step back and think about, okay, I need to make this pitch or that pitch, or if I make this pitch, is it going to work the way I want it to compared to when everything's going the same, your body takes over.
Your injury was a very unusual one. I had never heard of it. It was, I think, classified as an ulnar nerve injury. How was it explained to you how you got the injury and what the recovery process is like from doctors and trainers?
Well, when you have surgery, it's been about 6 years since I've had surgery, so you can have scar tissue that grows around that nerve or around your ligament and types of things. So the further you get away from surgery, it's common to have stuff grow around there. And as far as from my understanding, what I'd had that little bit of scar tissue around there, maybe bumping on it or maybe putting a little pressure on it, or it might have been rubbing over it when I was doing the throwing motion. So, nerves are part of the most sensitive part of your body. So if they're getting irritated and that's happening, then it's going to be a painful type thing. So that's what he'd explained to me, is that had been happening and it just needed to be calmed down by taking some medications and maybe a cortisone.
Is it something eventually that you're going to have taken care of surgically to prevent something like that from popping up again?
He didn't, the doctor, Meister, and I talked about it, and he didn't really know, and he said there's no reason to think about that if I can get a shot and then I can come back and I'm feeling good. There's no reason to even contemplate surgery. Surgery is always such a serious thing that you don't want to think about it until it's really the last thing you need to worry about. So he said, get it calmed down, and if it's feeling back to the same way, maybe it was just some inflammation, or maybe it was just something in there that was hurting a little bit.
We're here with Randy Henry, RoughRiders relief pitcher. Randy, you're a guy that has had some injury history. You mentioned you had surgery on your elbow a long time ago, but talking with Danny Clark and the way your role has been explained, are you comfortable knowing that, okay, you're going to be a 1 to 2 inning guy from here on out, at least for the foreseeable future, whereas at the start of the season it was up in the air. Is he going to start? Is he going to be a 4 or 5 inning reliever? Is he going to be a short stint guy?
Yeah, I think it's definitely easier, and it makes me comfortable. I'm comfortable doing either, but when I'm going to approach hitters the same way, whether I'm throwing 5 or 6 innings or whether I'm throwing 1 or 2. So I would say the only difference is I'm not throwing as much, so I can come in there and I can focus on getting those three outs, those 6 outs. And if you come into a situation, that's something that last year I was put into a lot at Myrtle Beach, coming in with runners on first and second, or coming in with the bases loaded and coming out in a jam, whether it be because there's a jam or a pitch count or something like that. It's something I've been very comfortable with, and my last year that I was with the Orioles, I was also introduced to that a little bit too, because I was coming off an injury then and only throwing up to 2 innings. So I'd say it's a pretty comfortable role for me.
Are they talking about putting you into a second inning of work here now that you've gone through 5 1-inning stints?
We haven't really talked anything about going into a second inning of work. I just know that I'm not on any type of program where I'm resting a certain amount of days or doing anything of that. I'm back to the normal program and the normal rotation. I think it will just depend on the situation and whether we need that second inning or not.
In a matter of about a week, this team has had 2 back end of the bullpen guys go up to AAA. First it was Ben Rowan, and then just today Wilmer Font getting the promotion. Would it be something that you'd be comfortable doing, coming into a closer's type role, being that guy in the 9th inning to pick up a save?
Yes, definitely. Last year we didn't really have any roles for anybody in Myrtle Beach, and I had a pretty good beginning of the year, and I got put into that role, and I was really comfortable when I was coming in there in the 8th or 9th inning and doing that type of thing with those games, and I think that's exciting. I think when you come in at the end of the game there, when the game's either on the line or you're trying to hold those guys, I think that I don't really look at it as pressure. I look at it as excitement and a fun part of the game.
The way you were throwing the ball earlier this season and what you've continued to do your last few outings, is this the best you've ever thrown?
I would say it's probably the best that I've ever thrown statistically, and according to that, I wouldn't necessarily say that some of my stuff is as sharp as it has been in the past or since my injury as it was before. But I would say, as well as an overall throwing, I would say this is probably the best most confidence I've had throwing.
Is there anything you can attribute that to?
Being comfortable with my body, knowing the things that I can do and not trying to do too much, and I'm very comfortable with the pitches that I'm throwing and knowing what I want to do, whether I'm facing a left-handed hitter, a right-handed hitter, runners on base, switching up my looks and not letting people, attempt stolen bases, doing things like that. I think the older you get in this game and the more experience you have, you're going to get more comfortable with your body and the things you need to do.
Going back to the trade that brought you over from the Orioles to the Rangers, was that something that caught you off guard?
Yeah, it definitely caught me off guard. I was actually in the gym in Tempe, Arizona, working out that day, and I was really surprised when I'd heard about it. I was obviously very excited to move closer to back home and to be playing closer to home, and the Rangers is a great organization to be in, so I was definitely excited about that. But it was it was like a blindside for sure. I didn't think that would happen at all.
One of the things that you do out there on the mound, and really with everything you do in terms of your pitching, is in memory of your brother Chris, who passed away a few years ago. Just tell us some of the things that you do to keep his memory alive and keep him with you in the game of baseball.
Yeah, well, I actually have a tattoo on my side that I have in memory of him, that reminds me of him every day I get up and do my things, and that always reminds me of him. I have his initials on my glove, so every time that I go out there and pitch, I want to think he loved to watch me play baseball. So, he's getting to watch me play baseball now more than he ever did, really. So I like to go out there, and I want to do well for myself, for my family, for the Rangers. But not only that, but I want to be able to do it in remembrance of him. And usually before I get the ball back from the third baseman in between every inning, I kiss my initials on his glove. That way that's the last thing that goes through my mind before I get the ball and get ready to toe up the rubber.
Well, so far he's seen a lot of good baseball, especially from you here this season. That's tremendous, obviously, the way you're able to keep his memory alive, and we hope to see the results continue to build up, and you continue to have the same kind of success. Thanks so much for the time, Randy.
All right, thank you.
It's Randy Henry. We're back after this on the Frisco RoughRiders Baseball Network.